Same color.
So, hey guys, in today's episode, we have Farhia Tabussum. She's the CEO of Chaya, a space sharing platform based in Bangladesh. She's previously worked with a startup, and that's when she found the idea of solving problems at scale fascinating and something that she wanted to pursue. So, she co founded a startup with one of her friends and is now in the process of building it throughout Bangladesh. Thank you so much for joining our podcast, Farhia.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely meeting you guys
Okay.
again.
It's great to meet you too. So Farhia, I want to get right into it. How did you guys sort of come across this problem, and what were your initial steps to get things moving, and how did you even start the startup?
So me and my friend, we've worked together before, school friend. So we used to sometimes shoot content for our other friends, whether it's for their YouTube channels or their brands. And the constant problem that we always came across was, where would we shoot? And since Bangladesh, there's like no discovery page or no anything at all where you could access information on where a person could go rent a place to shoot or free spaces to shoot at. So it was very difficult. And one day while shooting for a brand, we rented out a friend's house, which was really nice to look at. And then while we were shooting there, we realized like, hey, like so many people have so many nice spots, unused spaces. There's a lot of restaurants that look really nice, Instagrammable, whatnot. We thought like, what if we provide a platform where users can easily find those places as well as book them through us. So that's how Chaya was first born. Me and my friend, we then reached out to another one of our school friends to build the website. And then so that's like me, Merab, and Arman. We started operation in 2019, and we kind of faced like a chicken and egg problem. Like, do we first have a website where people can, find these spaces and list these spaces, or do we first seek out spaces, right? Yeah. But then when you go and list spaces, the space owners are like, you don't have anything or for you to like look at. Like, there's a trust issue, right? Why should I open up my doors through you to strangers? So it was kind of difficult at first. So we started off with like some of our own friends' houses or rooftops and gardens, mostly outdoor spaces, so that they don't have to like let people into their homes at first to test out the market. And then we had like around 20 spaces like that before we launched the website. And before that, we just used Instagram mostly to post photos of the spaces. We'd like go there ourselves, take photos, and speak with the spacers. Like there would be like 3 to 4 meetings before the space owners would like agree to giving us a space. So it was kind of difficult at first, getting these spaces and then listing them up. But once we had them on our website, a lot of our spacers as well as our users would question, hey, why are you just doing this for photo shoots? And that's when we realized, I think mid-November or so, like 1.5 months into it, we were like, okay, you know what, we can do this so much bigger, solve problems for so many more people by providing spaces for more than photo shoots, but for events as small as a 2-person's anniversary dinner to as big as a wedding or a concert. So that's how we started Chaya.
So you started with like, no code sort of platform, or just basically using Instagram, word of mouth, and use that to kind of get the business going. And what was like those sort of early days like, or the early couple of months? Were you guys kind of hustling? And this chicken and egg problem is, I think, really relevant to a lot of startups, anybody building a marketplace or where you have supply and demand. Were you actively having to follow up with people to book places, or were you already seeing kind of like a flow of people of that and then able to find the places? And was it like messy organizing them at the same time in the beginning? And what was your process like?
I think we were like all just running around like headless chicken at a point, because there were times when let's say a person wanted a dinner at a rooftop, there's nothing else on that rooftop, right? It's just a space. Right. So for us to convince this person like, hey, do take a rooftop and don't just like have a boring old date at a random restaurant, we would actually go to decorators who have like furniture rentals, would go and like rent out tables and chairs separately, get food separately, and get some other like candles and set things up ourselves. So like I think we spend a lot of time per booking sometimes just to make it perfect, so that we can convince and give the users a good experience, right? So it was a lot of hustle early stage. We would be like running around, taking photos, setting bookings up, and I think
Nice.
we struggled a bit because there's a massive like gap in information. We struggled with legal issues like setting up our company because we were at a very early stage. We didn't have funding. It was just very bootstrap, like our from our own pockets. So like if you wanted to have like your company incorporated by a good lawyer, it would cost a lot. So we got like a random shoddy person to do it for us. We're now suffering from a little bit because he didn't do a lot of the documents properly. Now that we show it to like the mentors that we have with us right now who are helping us, they're like, who did you get this done by? This is like missing points. So yeah, like we struggle. I think in Bangladesh, like especially in 2019, like right before COVID, there was like a massive lack of information as well as resources. The government didn't do much. Right now, the government has like started giving out grants for like startups and trying to support them with resources in terms of mentorship and whatnot. But back then, we were just like babies. Like no, we didn't know what we were doing. It was so disorganized. Like when I think back, I feel like I was a child. It's just so embarrassing some of the things that we did. So yeah, I think it was very disorganized. We ended up there weren't any. I think we should have stopped at some point, but we got very involved in each booking, and because there weren't any other platforms like this involved before, we had to do a lot of like phone calls because people wouldn't trust just a static website and pay money for a space that they have yet to see. So it was a lot of phone calls. There was a lot of involvement.
That obviously helped, right? Doing all of that. Sorry, but that obviously helped while you were doing that, like to create that, sense of familiarity and kind of trust as well. Because people, like you said, also like if they're giving out their rooftop or their home, there's obviously like that hesitancy, right? Also, I mean, we heard that you raised a round of funding. That's amazing. Congrats.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, you mentioned it briefly, but how do you think that's like helped you, I guess, not be as unorganized like you were saying, or kind of put you on a more organized path? Or just talk to us about how that's kind of changed the growth for Chaya.
So when the pandemic hit, we were like closed for like 5 months, and then when we finally opened again, we realized that we were running low on funds. We were just gonna like shut down if we didn't do much, because bookings were like an all-time low because nobody was getting out. There's the feeling of fear was still like not there. We reached out to a lot of people, and we realized like, no, you can't do this without people to help us. So we've reached out to a lot of people and found mentors, and I think that really helped us. Like they really shaped us, and just like they were brutal with us, but it really helped. Like we organized ourselves, made sure that we had weekly KPIs that we were very strict to following, making sure we documented every little process, because without documentation, you don't really know what's going wrong and why it's going wrong. So those are like some of the things that we didn't do. We were kind of just winging it in the beginning. But now, like after speaking with mentors, and we also went through this pre-incubation period with this organization, and they really helped us, like step back a little, because once when you're too close to the work, you don't realize that there's some big problems that you probably would not have seen if somebody else hadn't pointed to you. So that really helped. I think honestly, like if you're starting your own business, it's difficult to do it by yourself or even with just your friends. You really need the help of like outsiders, industry. So like they really that team really helped us. Like I think I would give like them a lot of credit for where we are right now. And in terms of fundraising, we were struggling quite a bit with fundraising because of the pandemic. Like a lot of investors are like, why should I invest in a company that is mainly based off of going outside of your house, right? Especially no one wants to go outside of their house.
That's counterintuitive.
Exactly. So we like refocus our strategy, basically mainly focus on events that are private events hosted in private spaces. So like a lot of people, they do want to meet their friends and family, and they just couldn't because they didn't want to go out in public with a lot of other people
Right.
around, right? So through us, we start promoting just small private spaces where you only meet who you want to meet, and like nobody else is allowed access. And these spaces were all obviously sanitized and safe, following all COVID guidelines and whatnot. So that I think a lot of that helped us with the fundraising.
And I mean, obviously, during the pandemic, especially for a business which is like outdoor based, I mean, what was that? What was that period like in March or April when COVID started really picking up for you guys? Did you have to kind of like shut operations down for a bit and reassess, or what were you guys doing?
Yeah, we were shut down for like a good 5 months. Like, we thought at first we thought like, okay, you know what, maybe this is good. This gives us time to like, organize and like, do the things that we couldn't do because we were so busy with day-to-day operations. But then like, as the months went by, we were really scared because when we would reach out to space owners, they're like even more wary about renting out to strangers now, right? So I think like month 3 to 5, we thought this was like Chaya's journey gone, like ended, we're done, over. Like it was a really bad time, especially like during lockdown, you're dealing with like other anxiety issues and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that was like a really bad time for us. But then again, as we said, like right after the lockdown, the first lockdown ended, we just like, there was like a click, and we thought, you know what, let's just focus on solving a problem that is more that the people are dealing with right now, right? The fact that they haven't seen people for 6 months, they're craving human interaction, and we should give that to them through safe for bookings. So I think that really helped. Not giving up, number one, because it was so easy to give up because it just seemed like there's no way out of this, right? And also pursuing help from other people, like in terms of advice. Those two things really got us out of that slump and right back into Chaya.
That's awesome. And like, I want to know a little bit about the platform itself, right? Because you mentioned that you have 2 other founders that you're working with. Because in the beginning you must have done it, like you mentioned, through your Instagram page and stuff like that. But what was that transition like into moving to a web app or something where people could kind of book it without having a lot of human interaction? And is that something people are getting more comfortable with? And how do you continue to like iterate and grow your platform as you continue to grow?
Yeah, I think we could see a trend in like the fewer number of phone calls that we're having to deal with now. Like before, every single booking required like multiple phone calls to assure them that we got for every step of the way. So like, I'll explain the booking procedure. I think that's the best way to start. So through our platform, people can view all the spaces and the spaces that allow the kind of event that they're looking for. So let's say it's 2 persons candlelight dinner. So they can use filters and find all the spaces that accommodate that. And if they like a space, they make a booking request where they fill out information from like booking start time, end time, like very specific, because they only rent the space for however long they're booked it for. So the space owner will see the space booking request, and they will like, choose to either accept it or deny it based on availability or based on like whatever reasons that they might have of accepting or denying. Once it's accepted, the user is then prompted to pay. And once it's paid, that's when the booking has been confirmed. And we hold that payment until the booking has been completed. And then we keep our commission and then process the rest of the payment to the space owner after the booking. So before, every step of this process would involve like a phone call to either the user or the spacer. But now I think like around 5 to 10% of bookings require phone calls. I think people have become accustomed. I think it's mainly because one, there is more trust in the fact that we're not a scam page, because we've been for like since 2019, and we've done enough bookings, and like we've had a lot of validation from users who are like influencers or famous people who have used our platform. So I think users have accepted that, okay, these guys are trustworthy enough for me to make a payment for a space I've yet to see. So that involves less involvement, as well as our website. So initially we started off with Instagram, then we moved on to a static website page with just like one page with all the listings. And then now we have, we've had many transitions in the middle with a really bad website to like a decent website. Even currently right now, we're using like a really basic website that just allows people to sign up, make a booking. The payment is still offline because we have yet to integrate the payment gateway. And yeah, but the Spacer still has a dashboard, like a very simple, basic dashboard to check who's made bookings. But yeah, it's very rudimentary right now. What we're doing is we're building a scalable web app, which will basically automate every aspect of the booking procedure. But yeah, that's where we are right now. And it's because we don't have a tech guy in our founding team, it's been very difficult to find people to build a scalable web app. We've had some bad experience before when we tried outsourcing it. It was just like they took like a year to make nothing, basically, until we just pulled the plug because it was just wasting time and resources. So yeah, those are like many mistakes that we've made along the way. But
so
yeah,
how many, like, what's the main sort of measuring tool for you guys? Is it number of spaces booked, number of users, or number of, I guess as you call them, spacers?
So yeah, the spacers. Our key metrics, I think if we just actually boil it down to two main points, would be the number of spaces that we have and the number of bookings. And then we have a lot of smaller key metrics, but these two are like the biggest ones that we follow because they're the main component of the entire business. So right now we've actually have around 80 unique spaces as well as experiences that have listed with us. Some are still in the pipeline, but I think 80 something in the pipeline right now.
And this is across Bangladesh as well, or is it just like in Dhaka
so this
or
is
like major cities?
Concentrated in Dhaka, that too in the tri-state area, because initially it was basically mostly outbound. Like we would have to reach out to the spaces that we found interesting or nice to look at. Only after we received funding and we've been able to do some marketing, spend some money on ads, were we able to get like people reaching out to us or listing themselves. So like in the last 2 months, we've had quite a bit of people like listing themselves. So since I'm in Boxes Bazaar, I've started looking around here as well, and we've started posting ads about spaces that are interesting outside of Dhaka. So mostly concentrated in Dhaka, but we're slowly starting to expand out.
Do you see yourself expanding out of Bangladesh eventually as well, or? Yeah,
for sure.
But then you probably have to like expand the network. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. So obviously, like we do want to take it globally, right? But
of course.
We want to concentrate on finding out what works and what doesn't, because we've changed so much already. Like I said, I think I didn't mention, we started experiences kind of like Airbnb, because we realized that a lot of these people, they want to be fed the exact kind of event that they want. They don't like creating it themselves, like just booking a venue through us and then getting decor and food separately. So we started like creating packages based off of customer behavior. We realized a lot of our people will just come on our platform for dates. So we just made a whole bunch of like date nights that have been going really well. So yeah, like I think we're trying to still learn like what works, what people need. Like our spaces, we realized what they need is a booking system. Even for like commercial spaces, right? They don't actually have a booking system that they use unless they're like a hotel or a resort, as well as a property management system, right? So like we've learned from our operation, from operating 1.5 years, that for our spaces, these are the two things that we can provide, and we can maybe go into a SaaS model in the future and provide that globally. And for our users, we're still trying to figure out exactly what kind of space needs do they have, and we realize it's mostly unique spaces that they previously did not have access to. So mostly people's homes, right? So we're still figuring that out before we like dare venture out of Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So what's the like day-to-day like for you guys? I mean, what are you specifically working on? What do your co-founders work on, and how much overlap is there with the stuff that you guys do?
So I think a lot of the things we used to do together, because like whoever's more available at that time. Like I hate finance, but here I am doing the day-to-day bookkeeping and financial projects because no one else can or will. And then
or will probably whoever ends up doing it.
Yeah. So it's because it was just 3 of us. We're actually 2 now because one of our co-founders have separated along the way.
Okay.
But I think it was just the 2 of us until like 3 months ago. So we did like everything, like day-to-day
Wow.
bookings, user query management, which is like a simple thing to do, but it takes up a lot of your time because there's just so many queries.
Yeah.
Space management, the listing process is kind of lengthy as well. We always make sure we meet the space owners, even if they come themselves, because we like to create like a relationship with them where they would, it's so easy to kind of go under the table with spacers and users once they've already been connected once. So we try to like make sure we build a relationship with them that's built on trust, then that they only rent out exclusively through us, and kind of maintain like no under the table policy of that. You can't really ensure it, but you just like make them feel a little guilty about it. I guess that's the most you can do right now. So that takes up a lot of time as well. So our day-to-day is like space visits, query management, always fun seeking, because it takes so long to like close on a deal. Like this deal, we've been in talks for like 6 months. So the fact that it took 6 months to finally close this deal, although the pandemic was like the main reason why. Yeah,
Right.
but the pandemic is not going to end anytime soon, right? So we're already seeking for our next round. And then just bookkeeping. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing a lot of things.
Bunch of things. Are you guys currently like hiring for these various roles and stuff that you currently take on?
So we took 2 interns to basically handle the menial jobs. We also hired outsourced our marketing, because before I would like make the posts. And I'm like very basic at graphic design, so like it wasn't all that great. We decided to outsource our marketing, and we're now looking for someone to help with sales, because if we're going to scale, obviously we need more people trying to onboard more spaces faster. So we're getting a sales team, and we're also getting someone to help with the day-to-day operations in terms of handling bookings and conflicts. So, and a tech team as well. We actually recruited someone for a tech lead. He seems very promising, so fingers crossed. And we're just gonna get him like a UI UX designer to help him.
Oh, nice. So that you can like refocus your energy on like the things that are more important to you, I guess, in terms of like growth. Yeah, the money, all that fun stuff. Just kind of changing like the gear a little bit about what like the name Chaya, how did that come about? Just is it something that you've thought about and then it just happened, or tell us the story behind the name and how it started?
So, Chaya in Bangla, and I think maybe in Hindi as well, means shade or shelter. So we thought like that was appropriate. And also Chaya, the name sounds ambiguous enough that like if we were ever to change our business model, it would still fit. We wouldn't have to change the brand name. So I think Chaya just felt nice, and it feels nice to say as well. And we wanted like a Bengali aspect to it, because when we take it globally, we just wanted to be able to trace it back to Bangladesh somewhat. So that's how we really like Chaya from the meaning as well as the way it sounds.
Yeah, it's a very like delicate sound, sound generally when you say it. Yeah, and even if it does be like taken outside Bangladesh or like India, you're right, it does mean the same thing. But people at least will like pique interest to ask like, what does that mean, or like why, especially if it's like a non Bengali or Hindi speaking place. So be like, what is this? Why? Where did this come from? So it's always a good conversation starter. Yeah. I mean, I would think that's a good like way to get people interested. So yeah. That's awesome.
So, Farhia, so I'm sure a typical question you got while you were in the process of raising, and then I'm sure you get from VCs and angels. So how does Chaya become like $100 million company? What's like the 5-year roadmap for you guys?
So we quickly realized like Chaya as is, there's like a limit. There's a ceiling to how much we can scale this, especially because of the current situation with the pandemic and everything. And we realized we also weren't solving that big a problem. So what we did was we had to like rethink our entire model, and we realized I think long-term rentals or accommodation is a much bigger problem, specifically for bachelors and individuals in Bangladesh. There's like thousands of students and young professionals who require short-term stays, like 3 months to 6 months, and most housing is like what I think like 1 year to 3
Long-term
years.
rentals.
Yeah, it's very strict, and most landlords don't rent out to individuals.
Right.
So we realized that that's a problem that is a much bigger problem, one, and it's something that we can actually, like, it's a problem everywhere, and it crosses the whole pandemic situation where we don't have to worry of whether or not lockdown is going to hit us bad, because people will always need a place to stay. So right now we're actually working on sort of transitioning our focus on accommodation. And I think there's something, if I was to point out something similar in India, it would be solo stays or Nestaway.
Right.
So we're kind of moving towards that model. I think that is more sustainable and more scalable for us. So yeah, I think that's one of the other reasons why our investor invested in Chaya, because there's just so many verticals to explore in the space industry. Specifically the accommodation industry, I think prop tech, if we were to, as I said, like SaaS model, if we were to provide a property management tool for homeowners where they can, look after their properties without, because most of these people, they have properties, but they're not their main source of income. So it's kind of difficult having to handle that and, like do things like maintenance and rent pickups. If we were to automate the entire process, it would be much simpler. And the whole co-living, it's just having people spend less for more, paying for a room, but having access to an entire apartment building. I think that's where we're moving our focus to and going forward.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
no, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Do you think that would kind of lead into what your competitive advantage is, or is it that you're the first of its kind in Dhaka and Bangladesh?
So there are co-living hostels. The quality is terrible. They like smush 8 people into one room. As well as like the websites that they do have, you can't really, there's no payment transaction happening there. It's more like a discovery page for just their bonding. So what we want to do is start off as an aggregator platform where we have people who have rooms or entire apartments that they want to rent out, fully furnished. And if it's not fully furnished, would probably go in and standardize a place and furnish with basic necessities, and then rent out, sublet each room individually. I think in terms of competitive advantage, would have it in the quality sector as well as innovation, since our website would enable people to list it, manage their properties, as well as for users to actually complete the entire booking process on our platform instead of like making phone calls, going to the space, and then signing a bunch of legal papers and renting out the place. So we want to make the entire process very simple. Right now, it takes like 2 to 4 weeks for a person to find and move into their housing, to their new homes, because there's no proper system in place that's automated, right? So we want to do that, and we also want to make sure like every property that's on our platform is vetted by us, matches like a specific standard. So we also want to have quality assurance. So those are like 2 things that we have realized are our competitive edge going into this market.
Say you have like all the resources you need to build whatever you want. What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge as you grow and scale, or what do you see as like a hurdle that may come in the way of you guys achieving the goals and ambitions you have?
I think we'll be getting into some bottlenecks with legal issues, maybe with the whole subletting individual rooms. That's something that we're going to have to obviously work with and find out what are the problems or issues that we could come up against. And I think the main issue is online payments. Like Bangladesh, it's still a new process. Like we're still like learning to trust online payment gateways and portals. It's a lot of money.
Okay.
Right, so it's a lot of money, especially if it's like for a month. Like if we take a month's advance, we will have to do prepaid methods, because I think that's the most easiest way to solve rent collection, because rent collection is apparently, after speaking to many homeowners, is the biggest issues that they deal with, because nobody pays on time. You have to like run to the tenants. Nobody wants to pay. So
Yeah.
I think the best way we can solve this initially, just the most hands-off method would be prepaid. Just have each month's rent be paid ahead of time for them to book and rent space out. So getting people to pay up beforehand, that to a web app or mobile app I think it's gonna be one of the biggest issues that we're gonna have to face. We're gonna have to like do a lot of education and build a lot more trust going into accommodation than what we have right now. So as well, and the legal bottleneck. So I think those three are our biggest issues.
So at least one of those you can solve by not cheaping out on your lawyer this time. Once you guys get,
Yeah.
once
Now
you
that
guys
you
get to that point.
Now that you have the mentors to help you pick the right lawyer.
No creepy
No.
lawyers.
It's all a learning, right? So there's
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
No, for sure. And the demographic that you're going for, like you mentioned, it's maybe people under the age of 30 or bachelors or people like maybe moving for their jobs. Even for them, you think that there's going to be a lot of educating in or like a change in behavior and entrusting payment gateways and things like that. Like I'm sure there's like ones that exist in Bangladesh that you could integrate, but you still think that as like that a potential
And
hurdle.
especially for the mass, right?
Right.
We're first, I think we're going to concentrate our focus on young to mid-level professionals initially, because with
Right.
students, a lot of their parents are the ones who are booking spaces for them or like renting out homes for them, especially if the parents are not living in the city with them. I think it's going to be very difficult at first to deal with parents right off the bat. So we're going to go with like young to mid-level professionals who would have an easier time to adopt to this method of booking their new homes, right? As well as like companies who constantly relocate their workers. They'll be easier to deal with a company rather than a single individual.
Oh, interesting.
So
So there's like a B2B avenue that you guys can explore as well.
Yeah, to at least to start off with. And then like, no, I think after existing for a while, like the same way it happened with Chaya as is, people learn to accept it. People are always constantly adapting to new things, right? You just need to give them, they don't want to be the first ones to try it out. So like
Right.
you always go for a smaller niche market for them to be the first testers so that the others can follow. So that's our like go-to-market strategy for now.
Right. No, for sure. Like once you hit that network effect, right, then it just kind of organically spreads and
yeah.
Awesome.
Especially if you have like focus on marketing and social media, then that obviously helps with it, right?
Yeah, a little bit. We actually had like very little marketing budget at first. So like our Instagram page and all of our branding, we're like redoing redoing everything now that we've got our funding, because it just looks so bad. Now that I look back on it, like it looked good when it was like just two people struggling to make things work. But now that we have the resources to like do better, it looks really bad, and we're looking forward to changing everything.
No, and you'll be your harshest critic on the branding and stuff in any case, and it's an endless bit. So like,
it's an endless change.
Marketing is a. So I'm interested to know, right? Because you have like a business model that you're currently working with, where you've got this whole advantage, and you're currently using the funding that you've got to grow that. Where would you say you're at with the PMF, right? Do you think you've achieved it in a certain aspect of like with the spaces that you're creating? And is it something that you're still exploring for, this future business model that you're working on? Or is it something that you think you've achieved and you're just adding to your product market fit? I mean, where are you in that sense?
I'm sorry, did you say PMF?
Yeah, your product market fit.
Product market fit, right. I think this is something that we have yet to like actually find properly. I would be lying if I said like, hey, Chaya, this is perfect, we found it, like that's the deal, like, which is the main reason why we're moving into long-term rentals, So I think, and that too, we have, I think we just started onboarding some spaces, and we're still trying to find a product market fit, find out what works, because only then will we know like this is what's scalable, right? This is something that focus on right now and just like push that forward. So we're kind of still at the testing stage right now, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. We've already pivoted a little bit by bit so many times, and at the end of the day we realize like, no, even like 5 years down we might have to pivot once again. So we're still in that stage of figuring out what works and what doesn't.
So you mentioned mentors
Yeah.
has been a great help to you in addition to the resources and of course adding team members and taking more of your plate and building the tech product. Are you reading any books or anything relevant that's helping you in like the process of building your own journey as a founder or co-founder?
I'm so horrible at this. Like I have so many people referring books to me every day, all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I have like a reading list that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get through it now. But like at the end of the day, I barely have time to be reading because I'm doing. So when you're doing your own company, right? Like there's no like
Yeah.
working hours. It's like whenever there's a problem, whenever there's a booking, I have to handle it regardless of the time and date. So like I'm horrible with reading books. But I do love reading books. It's just that I haven't been able to get time. So I think what works best for me is talking to people and like getting specific. Like if I have a problem, if a problem comes up, I just ask relevant people or like search up myself and do some research, trying to figure it out. Like I think I've been going problem by problem.
Nice.
But yeah, if you want to read books and like I'll get ahead on that.
What are some of those books that you have on your list?
I think, wait, let me bring up, I think recently a friend suggested this book. Wait, how do I operate my phone landscape? Oh gosh.
It's okay.
Okay.
You can send it
some
to
of the
me
common
later
startup
as well.
ones are like 0 to 1 and lean
0 to
startup
1,
and stuff like that. So you can always,
yeah, I've heard
if you,
about those.
yeah, if you really want to feel bad about what you're doing and the way you're building your startup, you should read 0 to 1 because you'll just feel really inadequate with the way you're building things, even if you're having the best day ever.
I've been
So
doing it for about like the last 6 years. Apparently, it's like the best book to read out there.
I don't know if it's the best book. It just, like you're saying, right? Like it's simple, right? What startups are supposed to do. You take a massive problem and you try to solve it one step at a time and then scale it. I think what 0 to 1 does is kind of breaks down what that looks like and what you need to make that happen, right? And it's not as simple as like just identifying the problem, but like even with the team and how you go about tackling the problem and what you should prioritize and stuff. So just listen to it. Audiobooks are good as well.
Oh yeah, I think I could do audiobooks. I think that'll be like faster for me.
Yeah. You can listen to it while you're doing your daily.
I just have like
5,000 things you're doing.
like I kind of like tend to like go off.
Yeah,
in my head.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's another issue. But I think I'm practicing being more mindful. So let's see.
Or just like get the snippets, just get the summary and then that's the main points and you'll be good.
I actually downloaded this app called Story Shorts or something, which basically has snippets of good books.
There you
like
go.
that.
Yeah.
But again,
Interesting.
I didn't open it after I downloaded it.
It's funny. At least you've downloaded it. One step at a time.
One step at a time.
Yeah. I think, do we have anything else we want to touch upon?
What's the biggest difference you found like working, and have you always been working in Dhaka? Were you working somewhere else prior to that, or
Dhaka. Yeah.
So what's the biggest difference you've seen working at somebody else's company versus working at your own? You briefly did mention that, like you're on call all the time.
So both times I've worked was with very small teams. So I guess like I never got that corporate culture that you get at bigger corporations, which I think worked out really great for me because I don't think I was ever made for that. I don't think I could do like from some of the stories I hear from my friends where like it's very strict, like there's the dress codes, way you like the upper levels, there's like hierarchy, office politics. Like I feel like I think I lucked out because every time I've ever worked was with small groups, and like even with consultation, like it's more like there's no hierarchy. It's like everybody just working together.
Right.
Yeah. And I think like I love that about running my own company. Now that we have other people working with us and for us, I like the fact that I can now create a more like my own corporate culture. Like I want people to constantly learn and improve on themselves, because I believe like when a person is improving on themselves and it's like ambitious, like just for their own goals, they can like use that
do better
for their company, right? Like I want them to find a way to use Chaya to basically reach their own personal goals. I think that's the best way to get someone to be more motivated at work if they're motivated by their own goals.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And then you kind of hear about it, right? Like you hear that company culture is something that you always have to work around, and it's always confusing as to like when you should actively make an effort, but you won't be able to do it when you've suddenly grown to like 50 people or 100 people. So it's important to start it when you're 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Yeah. Also that the company, the fashion company that you said you co-founded or started with your sister. So are you still, I know you say you don't have time, but is that, how did that transition happen? You just kind of like, okay, sister, this is yours now.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye.
So like during the pandemic, again, like I got bored, right? Because
Yeah.
the operations on Chaya's end was like, no, stop, right? So me and my sister, we've always like, since we were kids, like we've always like, wanted to like create our own fashion brand. So we did that during the pandemic because my sister has connections with some factories where we could get like orders made in smaller quantities. So we could only have clothes made that we know for a fact that this amount would sell. We didn't want to like overstock, as well as like have wastage of clothes left over that didn't sell. And we also found a factory that uses recycled nylon as well. So like we thought that this is the best way to have our fashion brand, do it in a small scale, controlled nice clothes that we ourselves would wear. And then right when Chaya was coming back to life, I was like, hey, sister.
My investor is saying I can't work on this anymore. Bye.
No more fashion for me.
I kind of like did like I told like I'd be able to like pay for it like sometimes I'd give like some cash injections from time to time, and I can help with like finding buyers, but that's like the most I can do. Like I can't do operations at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So
provide places for the photo shoots.
How did she take
it? My sister has once used. She has this other company called Dhaka Vintage, which is like a curation of like old clothes and old pieces of jewelry, furniture. So she has used once.
There we go. Mutual benefit.
It sounds like everybody in the family, or at least you and your sister, are hustling, doing businesses, and being entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I guess
COVID also helped with that. Maybe while sitting at home and like seeing where you can use
my sister
your skills.
Was always scrappy, so like although Dhaka Vintage was like pre-COVID, but yeah, she was always scrappy, and she's like a bit of a boss lady, like she's very good at getting things done by other people, which I think is like a skill to have.
Yeah,
for
sure. And not making it seem like you're doing that, but like getting people to do it, but then making it seem like you're doing everything. That's
now that we have people working for them, I'm still trying to find I don't want to be bossy, but I also don't want to like be a softie where like they just walk all over me, right? And like it's hard to find that balance where I want them to not miss deadlines, but I don't want to be up on them, but they start I don't want people to not feel good about work, right? I want them to feel like, hey, this is something that I don't want to work. If they need help, they can reach out to me without feeling scared of me. But yeah, there's a balance that you need to find, and I'm still trying to navigate that.
Be like a friend and a boss, that kind of I guess.
Like not too much of anything.
Yeah.
So like you're yelling at them, but then saying "good job" at the end of it.
You're so good. No compliment.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
With kindness.
Farhia, it was great talking to you, and it's so interesting to learn about what you've created and what you're working on. And I think we'll definitely love to see Chaya come into India, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about how we can kind of make that happen as
Maybe use one of our spaces, and you never know how that could work.